What happens when a master of restraint walks into a room built for spectacle, and the words meant to entertain suddenly sharpen into weapons? Before you settle in, subscribe to Stage View right now, hit like, and drop a comment if you're ready for stories that don't blink when the lights get hot. The studio lights of The View burn hotter than usual that morning, bleaching the pastel set into something almost unreal. Benedict Cumberbatch sits upright on the couch, hands folded, spine straight, the posture of a man trained to hold still while storms pass over him. He's been in war rooms and on alien planets, in period dramas and psychological labyrinths, but daytime television is its own battlefield. The applause fades, and he feels it, the low hum of anticipation, the audience leaning forward without knowing why. Whoopi Goldberg turns toward him slowly. She doesn't rush. She never does. Her presence is gravity. She smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes, not yet. "So," she says, voice warm, measured, dangerous in its calm. "You've been everywhere lately. Films, interviews, speeches. You've had a lot to say." Benedict smiles politely. "I suppose that comes with the job." Laughter ripples through the audience, but it's thin. The other hosts glance between them, sensing the shift. Joy Behar raises an eyebrow. Sunny Hostin adjusts her notes. Something unscripted is happening. Whoopi leans back. "You've talked about art, about responsibility, about voices being heard." She pauses. "Some people think you choose which voices matter." The air tightens. Benedict's jaw flexes almost imperceptibly. Inside, he feels the familiar calculation, respond honestly, but carefully. "I think listening is the first step," he says. "And listening requires humility." Whoopi nods slowly. "Does it?" She tilts her head. Because from where some folks are sitting, humility looks a lot like silence. And silence can be loud. A murmur rolls through the crowd. Benedict inhales. He can feel his pulse now. "Silence can also be respect," he replies. "Not every moment calls for a performance." Whoopi's smile fades. "This is television," she says. "Performance is the point." A beat. Two. The audience laughs, but it's nervous. And just like that, the gloves are off. The conversation accelerates like a car losing its brakes. Whoopi's questions come sharper now, each one wrapped in a smile that doesn't soften the impact. "You play geniuses," she says. "Men with power. Men whose words change worlds. Do you ever worry that people listen to you more than the people actually living these issues?" Benedict shifts. He uncrosses and recrosses his hands. "I worry about that constantly," he says, "which is why I try to redirect attention." "Try," Whoopi repeats. "But do you succeed?" The audience leans in. Someone coughs. A camera operator adjusts framing, sensing history. "I'm not the authority," Benedict says. "I never claimed to be." Whoopi's eyes flash. "Authority isn't something you claim. It's something you're given. And you've been given a lot." Applause erupts, real this time. Benedict nods, absorbing it like a blow. "I don't deny my platform," he says carefully. "But I don't believe using it means drowning out others." Whoopi leans forward now, elbows on her knees. "Then why does it keep happening?" The question hangs, heavy and personal. Benedict's throat tightens. He thinks of interviews clipped out of context, headlines screaming his name while quieter voices vanish beneath the noise. "Because the system is broken," he says. "And one actor can't fix it." Whoopi sits back, studying him. "True," she says. "But actors have started revolutions before. With words." A hush falls. Even the other hosts are silent now. Benedict meets her gaze. For the first time, his voice hardens. "Words can heal," he says. "But they can also harm when twisted for spectacle." Whoopi's eyebrow arches. "You think this is spectacle?" "I think pain shouldn't be packaged," he replies. The audience gasps. Someone says, "Oh." Whoopi's smile disappears completely. "Careful," she says softly. "Because this spectacle has given a lot of people a voice you've never needed to fight for." The silence is deafening. The tension becomes a living thing, crawling through the studio, coiling around every chair. Joy Behar tries to jump in, a joke half formed on her lips, but Whoopi lifts a hand. "Not yet." Benedict feels heat rise in his chest. He didn't come here for this. Or maybe he did, without admitting it to himself. "I'm not dismissing this space," he says. "I'm questioning how it's used. And I'm questioning," Whoopi fires back, "whether you understand the difference between questioning and condescension." A collective inhale from the audience. Benedict's eyes flicker. For a moment, the polished actor cracks, and something raw shows through. "I grew up watching this show," he says. "I respect it. I respect you. Respect isn't flattery, Whoopi says. It's accountability. Applause explodes. The camera cuts to the crowd. Faces lit up, mouths open, phones discreetly recording. Benedict nods slowly. Then hold me accountable, he says. But don't assume intent where there is none. Whoopi stands. The studio erupts. Standing ovation? Or shock? It's impossible to tell. She looks down at him, not towering, but commanding. Intent doesn't erase impact, she says. And impact is what people live with when the cameras turn off. Benedict rises too, instinctively. Now they're eye to eye. Two titans, different worlds, same stage. I hear you, he says quietly. Whoopi studies him for a long moment. Then finally she nods. Good, she says. Because hearing is where change starts. The tension breaks, not into laughter, but into something heavier. Respect forged in fire. They sit. The hosts exhale. The audience applauds long and loud. But the moment isn't over. It's only begun. By the time the episode ends, the internet is already on fire. Clips race across social media like sparks in dry grass. Headlines scream, Cumberbatch confronted. Whoopi unleashed. The View goes nuclear. The audience outside the studio buzzes, arguing, debating, reliving every word. Some call it brave. Others call it brutal. Everyone calls it unforgettable. Benedict leaves through the back in trance, collar up, expression unreadable. His phone vibrates nonstop. Whoopi remains inside, calm as ever, sipping tea, already moving on. That night, hashtags trend worldwide. Think pieces bloom. Fans pick sides. Critics dissect tone and intent like surgeons. And somewhere in the noise, a quieter conversation begins, about words, power, and what happens when two voices refuse to back down. Now it's your turn. What did you see in that moment? Truth, ego, courage, or all three? Drop your opinion in the comments. Share this story with someone who loves real, unfiltered drama. And subscribe to Stage View for more explosive, cinematic stories where words become weapons and moments become history. The applause that follows is loud, but it doesn't feel celebratory. It feels like pressure releasing from a sealed room. When the cameras cut to commercial, the studio doesn't relax, it tightens. Crew members shift their weight. Producers whisper urgently into headsets. The air smells faintly of hot lights and cold coffee, and beneath it all, something sharper, adrenaline. Benedict Cumberbatch stares down at his hands. They're steady, but he can feel the tremor waiting underneath. He tells himself this is no different from a stage confrontation, no different from a director pushing an actor to the edge. But this isn't scripted. There's no curtain call where everyone hugs backstage and laughs about how real it felt. This is real, and he knows it. Whoopi Goldberg doesn't look at him during the break. She's listening to a producer, nodding once, twice, her face unreadable. She's been doing this long enough to know when a moment is slipping from television into something else, something that can't be walked back. Joy leans toward Benedict, voice low. You okay? He gives a tight smile. Ask me in an hour. She exhales through her nose, half amused, half concerned. You poke the bear. Across the table, Sonny watches Whoopi carefully. There's admiration there. And caution. The red light flicks back on. They're live again. Whoopi turns toward Benedict. No preamble, no easing back in. We're still here, she says, her voice calm but carrying steel. And I want to be clear. This isn't personal. This is about patterns. Benedict lifts his gaze. The audience quiets instantly. Patterns of who gets grace, Whoopi continues. Who gets the benefit of the doubt, and who gets told to wait their turn. Benedict nods once. That's fair. The simplicity of the response surprises her. It surprises the room. But, he adds, and the word lands heavy, patterns don't exist in a vacuum. They're fed by systems that reward outrage and reduce nuance to sound bites. A ripple of reaction moves through the crowd. Some nod. Others stiffen. Whoopi tilts her head. You think nuance survives without friction? I think friction can burn, he says. Especially when it's aimed. The audience murmurs again. This time it's divided. Whoopi smiles faintly. You're a smart man, she says. So don't dance around it. Are you saying this show aims its fire unfairly? There it is. The line in the sand. Benedict feels the weight of it press into his chest. He thinks of every publicist warning, every media training session that taught him how to say everything without saying anything. He thinks of walking out, of deflecting, of softening the blow. Instead, he exhales. I'm saying, he begins slowly, that sometimes conversations meant to expose injustice can become performances of power themselves. The studio explodes. Applause. Gasps. A shout from the back row. The director signals frantically for quiet. Whoopi doesn't interrupt. She waits. That's what makes it worse. And power, Benedict continues, his voice steadier now, is something we all have to interrogate, including me. Including you. The silence afterward is absolute. Whoopi's eyes narrow, not in anger, but in focus. You want to talk power? She says. Let's talk power. She turns to the audience. How many of you have ever felt talked over? Hands shoot up. A sea of them. How many of you felt invisible until someone with a microphone said what you'd been screaming for years? More hands. Louder applause. Whoopi turns back to Benedict. This microphone, she says, tapping the table, isn't neutral. Neither is yours. Benedict swallows. I know. Do you? She presses. Because knowing means acting differently when the heat's on. He leans forward, elbows on his knees now, posture mirroring hers from earlier. Then tell me, he says. What does acting differently look like? The question isn't rhetorical. It's an opening. The audience feels it shift. Whoopi studies him. It looks like sitting in the discomfort without trying to intellectualize it away. A murmur of agreement. It looks like not centering yourself in every narrative, she continues. Even when you're invited. Benedict nods slowly. That's a lesson I'm still learning. Sunny leans in now. But is it fair, she asks Whoopi, to demand perfection from someone who's admitting growth? Whoopi glances at Sunny, then back at Benedict. Nobody asked for perfection, she says. We asked for awareness. Benedict's voice softens. Then hear this, he says. I am aware that my voice carries weight I didn't earn through lived pain. And I am trying, clumsily, imperfectly, to use it responsibly. The audience reacts differently now. The anger hasn't vanished, but it's complicated. Human. Whoopi sits back, arms crossed. Trying isn't a shield, she says. But it's a start. For a moment, it feels like the storm might pass. Then Joy speaks, half joking, half not. So, are we saying celebrities should just shut up? Laughter breaks the tension, but Whoopi's answer is immediate. No, she says. We're saying they should listen twice as much as they speak. Benedict smiles faintly. I'd sign up for that class. The audience laughs again, warmer this time. But even as the mood softens, something irreversible has happened. Lines have been crossed. Truths spoken that don't neatly fold back into entertainment. As the segment winds down, Whoopi looks directly into the camera. Conversations like this, she says, aren't comfortable. They're not supposed to be. But if we can't have them here, where can we? Applause swells, long and sustained. Benedict joins in, clapping, not for himself, but for the moment. For the rupture. When the cameras finally cut, the studio exhales again, but this time it's different. Not relief. Aftershock. Benedict stands, extending a hand toward Whoopi. She looks at it for a beat, just long enough for the cameras to miss it, then takes it. The handshake is firm. Respectful. Not friendly. Not hostile. Real. Thank you, he says quietly. She meets his eyes. You survived, she replies. That counts for something. Backstage, the producers are already bracing for impact. Phones buzz. Screens fill with clips and captions stripped of context. The machine is awake now. Benedict walks down the hallway alone, footsteps echoing. He knows this moment will follow him. He also knows he wouldn't take it back. Because some battles aren't about winning. They're about being changed by the fight. The hallway feels longer than it should. Benedict walks it slowly, every step echoing, every echo a replay of words he can't unhear. Discomfort. Power. Impact. They follow him like a second shadow. A publicist catches up, whispering urgently, but he raises a hand. Not now. Not yet. Behind him, the studio hums with delayed reaction. Staffers cluster around monitors, rewatching moments already clipped, already captioned. Someone laughs nervously. Someone else shakes their head. No one is neutral. Inside the green room, Whoopi sits alone for a moment, shoulders relaxed but eyes sharp. She's seen this before. Men shaken by a mirror they didn't expect. She doesn't feel triumph. She feels responsibility. That's the part people don't understand. A producer peeks in. You good? Whoopi nods. I said what I said. Across town, before the episode even finishes airing on the West Coast, the internet detonates. The first clip hits social media with no context, just a tight zoom on Benedict saying performance of power. The caption reads, Cumberbatch calls the view a power play. Fire emojis. Sirens. Thousands of comments in minutes. Another clip follows, Whoopi standing, voice steady, cutting through the room. Intent doesn't erase impact. This one spreads faster. It's shared by activists, journalists, celebrities. It becomes a quote. A banner. By the time Benedict reaches his car, his phone is vibrating like it's alive. Don't look, his publicist says gently. He looks anyway. Praise and fury collide on his screen. Some call him brave. Others call him arrogant. A few call him honest. Many call him names he's learned not to repeat. He leans back, closing his eyes. For the first time since the interview began, he feels tired. Meanwhile, inside the studio, the audience spills out into the street, buzzing, voices overlapping. That was necessary. That was uncomfortable. He needed that. She went too far. No, she didn't go far enough. Strangers argue like they've known each other for years. Some exchange numbers. Some storm off. Everyone feels like they witnessed something they weren't supposed to. On cable news that afternoon, a panel debates tone. Not substance, tone. Was Whoopi too harsh? Was Benedict defensive? Is this cancel culture? Is this accountability? The words pile up, flattening the moment into talking points. But elsewhere, in quieter spaces, something else happens. A young actor tweets, "Watching that made me rethink how often I speak instead of amplify." A writer posts, "Discomfort isn't abuse. It's growth." A fan admits, "I love Benedict, but I needed to hear that." The conversation fractures, but it also deepens. That evening, Benedict sits alone in his hotel room, city lights blinking like distant signals. He watches the full segment again. Not the clips, not the edits, but the whole thing. He notices his own pauses, the flicker in Whoopi's eyes, the audience's shifting energy. He notices where he leaned in instead of away. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't regret it. But he doesn't feel victorious either. He texts one person. Just one. That was hard. But necessary. The reply comes minutes later. Growth usually is. Across the city, Whoopi scrolls too, though she pretends she doesn't care. She sees the praise. She sees the backlash. She's been called worse things by better people. What catches her attention is a clip she didn't expect to resonate. Benedict asking, "Then tell me, what does acting differently look like?" The comments underneath are different. Thoughtful. Messy. Real. She pauses there longer than she means to. The next morning, the fallout intensifies. Entertainment blogs frame it as a showdown. Political commentators weaponize it. Memes reduce it to jokes. Someone edits dramatic music underneath their exchange, and it racks up millions of views. Benedict's team releases a statement, measured, respectful, safe. He hates it. It says everything and nothing. Whoopi declines interviews. She doesn't need to explain herself. On The View, the hosts open the show by acknowledging the moment. Joy cracks a joke. Sunny grounds it. Whoopi looks straight into the camera and says, "If you felt uncomfortable watching yesterday, good. That means you were paying attention." Applause fills the studio. Some viewers turn it off. Others lean closer. Benedict watches from his hotel, coffee untouched. He exhales slowly. He knows this will follow him into every press junket, every panel, every red carpet question. "Do you regret it?" they'll ask. He practices answers. None of them feel right. Later that week, he attends a small industry event. The room is polite. Smiles are warmer than necessary. Conversations dance around the elephant until someone finally says it. "That was intense," a fellow actor murmurs. Benedict nods. "It was. Are you okay?" He considers the question. "I think so," he says. "Ask me in a year." Across the room, someone watches him with new eyes. Not judgment, not admiration, but curiosity. That feels different. That feels earned. Back on social media, the discourse refuses to die. College classes assign the clip. Podcasts dissect it. Comment sections become battlegrounds and classrooms at the same time. And somewhere in the noise, something unexpected happens. People start talking to each other instead of past each other. Not everywhere. Not perfectly. But enough to notice. A week later, Benedict receives an envelope. No return address. Inside is a handwritten note. "I didn't agree with everything you said, but I respect that you stayed." Most people don't. He reads it twice. Then he folds it carefully and puts it in his pocket. On the other side of the city, Whoopi records a segment alone. No guest. Just her. "Accountability isn't punishment," she says into the lens. "It's invitation." She doesn't name Benedict. She doesn't have to. The audience applauds anyway. The storm hasn't passed. It's changed shape. And both of them know the hardest part isn't what was said on camera. It's what comes after, when the lights are off, and the question remains. What do you do now that you know? The answer doesn't arrive all at once. It never does. It arrives in fragments, late-night thoughts, awkward pauses, conversations that don't end where they used to. It arrives in rooms where Benedict is no longer the unquestioned center, and in moments where he chooses not to be. It arrives in silence, the kind that used to terrify him, now oddly instructive. 2 weeks after The View, the storm hasn't faded, it's matured. The headlines are less hysterical, more analytical. The outrage has thinned, leaving behind something heavier and harder to dismiss. Reflection. Benedict sits across from a journalist in London, rain tapping against the window like punctuation. The recorder is on. The question finally comes. Do you regret what happened on The View? He doesn't answer immediately. He looks past the interviewer, out into the gray, and for once he doesn't reach for a polished line. No, he says. But I regret how rarely we let moments like that happen without turning them into blood sport. The clip doesn't go viral. It doesn't need to. It lands quietly, shared by people who watched the original exchange and stayed with it. Meanwhile, Whoopi walks onto The View set like she always has, but the energy around her has shifted. The audience applause is louder, sharper. Some stand. Some don't. She notices everything. She opens the show without mentioning names. There's a difference between being attacked and being challenged, she says. One is violence. The other is respect. Applause swells. Not unanimous. Real. Behind the scenes, producers tell her the ratings spike hasn't dipped. If anything, it's grown. But that's not what stays with her. It's the letters, emails, handwritten notes, messages from people who saw themselves in that exchange. Not as Benedict or Whoopi, but as the unheard, the interrupted, the uncertain. One message stands out. She reads it twice. I never thought I'd see someone powerful stay in the room after being uncomfortable. Thank you for not letting him leave. She folds the paper carefully. That matters more than numbers. On social media, the conversation splinters again, but now the volume is different. Less screaming. More listening. Not everywhere. Not always. But enough to matter. A clip resurfaces, slowed down this time. Not the confrontation. The pause. Benedict leaning forward. Asking, then tell me, what does acting differently look like? Someone captions it. This is the moment. Universities discuss it in media ethics classes. Therapists reference it in talks about accountability. Activists argue with each other about it, and then sometimes agree. The internet doesn't change overnight, but something shifts in its posture. Months later, Benedict appears at a charity panel. He's not the keynote speaker. He insisted on that. He sits off to the side, listening. When he speaks, it's brief. When he's applauded, he looks uncomfortable and lets it pass. A young woman approaches him afterward, nervous but steady. I didn't like you that day, she says. He nods. Fair. I like you more now, she adds. Because you didn't disappear. That night, alone again, Benedict thinks about the word Whoopi used. Invitation. He realizes that's what the moment was. Not a verdict, not a takedown, but a door left open under unforgiving light. Across the ocean, Whoopi watches a rerun of the episode by accident. She doesn't usually do that. She almost changes the channel. She watches herself stand. Watches his face change. Watches the audience realize they're part of it too. She doesn't smile. She doesn't cringe. She nods once. The media eventually moves on. It always does. There's a new controversy, a louder one, an easier one. But this moment refuses to vanish completely. It lingers, referenced without explanation, understood without context by those who felt it. Because some confrontations don't end when the camera's cut. They echo. And now, the story belongs to everyone who watched it and felt something stir. Defensiveness, recognition, discomfort, possibility. So what about you? When you watched that moment unfold, whose silence did you recognize? Whose power? Whose discomfort? Was it confrontation or accountability? Was it too much or not enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This conversation doesn't end here. It only matters if we keep it alive. Share this story with someone who loves real, unfiltered moments where words collide and truth refuses to whisper. And subscribe to Stage View for more explosive cinematic stories that pull you inside the room, right where history happens.